Hello, friend. Today we're going to be talking with Robert Dugoni. He's a New York Times bestselling author and an amazing writer. He has written The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell and My Sister's Grave and many others. Let's hop into the interview. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing and your books for people that might not know about you?
Sure. I am a lawyer. No, let's see. I'm a writer turned lawyer turned writer. I grew up reading books voraciously. I began to work on writing for newspapers in high school, at college. I got out of Stanford University. I went to the LA Times, and then I got cold feet, quite honestly. And I ended up going to law school with some buddies, prolonged the graduate experience as long as I could,
Yep.
and then took a job at a law firm. I realized fairly quickly it wasn't really what I wanted to do,
Okay.
but it took me about 13 years to get to a point where I was ready to make a break. So
Yep.
my wife and I, we moved out of San Francisco. We moved up to Seattle, where she is from, and I began my writing career in an 8 foot by 8 foot office that had no windows, that she dubbed the prison cell.
Okay.
And I failed miserably for many, many years.
Yep.
Had some initial luck off the bat, and then really realized I realized what I didn't know.
Yep.
And once I realized what I didn't know, and I started to really sort of study the craft of novel writing, which is a lot different than newspaper articles and other forms of writing, and then I had some success. So I started off writing legal thrillers. I had 5 in a series. I switched publishing houses. I moved over to Thomas and Mercer and Lake Union at Amazon Publishing, and I started a police procedural series called with Tracy Crosswhite, who's Seattle's first female homicide detective. I turned in my 9th book just a short while ago.
Cool.
And in the interim, I've written an espionage series with a character by the name of Charles Jenkins, who was in some of the David Sloan books.
Oh, cool.
So kind of a spin-off. And then I've had a lot of success with standalones. The biggest probably was a literary novel called The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. And I have a new book in September, which is called The World Played Chess, which is another coming of age story about, battling your demons and finding hope in dark times and rising above. So
Wow.
I do a little bit of everything. And I tell people I just love to write. That's what I love to do.
That's awesome. I'm excited about the one that you just mentioned, The World Played Chess, that's coming out soon. So
Yeah,
that'll be exciting.
mid-September. I'm excited for it too. The advanced reviews have really been strong.
Oh, good.
So that's great news.
Good. And can you tell us the blurb for that one?
Sure. So Vincent Bianco is an 18-year-old who graduates from high school and is preparing to go off to college and really just wants to spend the summer drinking beer and screwing around with his friends. But his brother-in-law gets him a job working on a construction crew, which he needs to do because he needs money to pay for college. He comes from a big family, and it's a small crew. There's only 4 guys, and 2 of the guys, the boss and the guy that has worked there, are Vietnam veterans. This is 1979.
Okay.
And as the summer progresses, one of the Vietnam vets begins to have PTSD.
Oh.
And Vincent becomes sort of the blank pages of his journal that this man can tell him what happened to him. Because if you know Vietnam veterans, they don't talk about what happened to them.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So the book opens when Vincent is 40, 48, 58, 58 maybe, 58 or 48 years old.
Okay.
And he receives a package in the mail. And it's addressed to Vincenzo. And the only guy that ever called him with Vincenzo was this guy, William. And inside he finds a journal.
Oh.
And it's this guy's 13 months in Vietnam.
Oh my
And he
goodness.
says to Vincent, all I ask is that you read it in the order it was written so that you will understand. Because he never got to say goodbye or thank you to him when the things ended in 1979. And so this was his way of sort of letting Vincent realize what happened in Vietnam. So the book is told through the journal, and it's told in the present, and it's told when Vincent is 18, sort of like Sam Hell.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty powerful. There are some
That's
scenes in there that are pretty powerful.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, and so touching. And I love too that you've decided to tell it in have journal and like that, tell it through journal style. Like
Well, you
that's
know,
a
it was really my son's idea.
oh
He said,
really?
you know, what would be great is if you could really create a realistic journal so
Yeah.
that people could experience what this man experienced.
Oh, cool.
And it was a great idea. And you know, I did find two Vietnam vets that were willing to talk to me.
Oh wow.
Several were not. And
Okay.
then I read probably 15 firsthand accounts
Yep.
of men who spent there in the bush in Vietnam, in addition to watching probably 25 movies and
Yeah.
documentaries and marine manuals and all that stuff. So it was I think the journal came. I think I accomplished what I set out to accomplish, was to provide a very true, realistic experience.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that, and I think it's going to be very powerful. It's just exactly what we all need nowadays.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And so, well, this is stepping back. So, like, what originally made you decide to be a writer? Like when you were in the lawyer world and everything, what made you decide to pursue writing?
It's what I always wanted to do. When I was young, my mother used to hand me books, and I
Okay.
didn't really understand what she was handing me at the time, but I was reading books like when I was 12 years old, I was reading The Great Gatsby, The Old Man and the Sea, The Count of Monte Cristo, um, Of Mice and Men, yeah, North by Northwest. I mean, you name it. And my mother was an English teacher before she started having 10 children. And she
Okay.
would hand me these books that she had. And I
Wow.
just loved them. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. And when I got into grammar school, even, you know, writing stories, writing English
Yep.
papers where there were stories involved, and giving speeches where you got to be a character, that was always what I really wanted to do. So,
Yep.
you know, I got back to really what I wanted to do. I never really wanted to practice law. As I said, I kind of chickened out. You know, was afraid of what kind of money journalists made and all the things that, you know, you worry about when you're 25 years old.
Yep.
So it was really a lifelong passion, and I'm very blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What inspires you to write? Like what kind of gives you the story ideas that you get inspired and end up pursuing those stories?
You know, what inspires me really is the challenge. I mean,
Okay.
every book is a challenge, and I try to make it a challenge. The book I just handed in, the ninth Tracy Crosswhite book, which is called What She Found,
Yeah.
it's written, every single scene is written in Tracy's perspective.
Wow.
Every single scene is
Okay.
in her perspective. The book before that, I had some really some good villains, some very well-rounded villains in the book, in her tracks. And so I wrote a more traditional thriller where you had scenes in their perspective and then scenes in Tracy's perspective. So, you know, it's really, I try to challenge myself, and the World Plays Chess was a huge challenge. And the book I'm working on now, which is a standalone, is a
Okay.
huge challenge. I've been on Zoom conferences with a world chess champion.
Wow.
I've been talking with people in the financial world. I've been talking with people in the criminal justice world, and just seeing the story start to come together
Hmm.
is really it's really what inspires me, because you know, as I'm out there staining my patio, as I mentioned off the
Yep.
air, um, I am seeing the story come together, and I know how I'm going to put it together, and I know the parts that are going to be powerful and are going to tug at heartstrings, and I know the parts that are going to make people scared. So it's that process of letting the muse sort of develop and come into being, and I'm excited about it.
Good. Well, that's wonderful. Isn't it funny when you're just going about your day that that's usually when the ideas kind of solidify in your mind,
Yeah, no
even
doubt.
if you're just doing the patio like that,
Yeah,
ideas are still coming.
absolutely.
That's wonderful. Okay, and so who are some of your favorite authors? Because authors read. So, what are some of your favorite authors?
You know, I love Stephen King. I've always loved Stephen King. I love his later stuff. You know, the
Hmm.
stuff like The Green Mile and 11/22/63 and all those books. And then other than that, I read just a wide variety of genres. You know, I read chick lit.
Yep.
I read women's fiction. I read romance. I read westerns. I read thrillers. I read mysteries. I just read a real wide variety. And I get asked a lot by people if I'll read their book and possibly present a blurb. I mean, so much so that I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy a good story. That's really what I enjoy. And so, my buddy Dan Waters, who's a self-published author, I love his stories.
Oh, cool.
And I don't care whether he's a known name or not a known name. I know that he puts together great stories, and so I love reading them. Sheldon Siegel is another independent author that I love to read his books, his Rosie books, which are legal thrillers.
Okay.
And at the same time, I like reading Michael Connelly stuff, and there's some other well-known authors that I enjoy reading as well. So I just love a good book.
That's good. That's wonderful. I love that you kind of read all different genres and stuff. I also do the same. Perfect. So what's a typical writing day look like for you?
So when I'm not doing the honeydew projects, the staycation stuff, I'm usually at my desk early. I'm at my desk by 6:30, maybe 7 o'clock, and I'll write until 9 in the morning, and then I do a Pilates class with my sister online, which I started doing during the whole COVID time, and it's been just a fabulous thing for me, just terrific. And then I'm back at my desk, and I will go till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that sometimes will be all writing, sometimes it'll be research and writing, sometimes it'll be copy editing a prior manuscript or developmentally editing a prior manuscript. But I put in a full day. I mean, I put in 8 to 10 hours, at the computer, working on my craft and working on, this kind of stuff, doing promotions and doing things that will get my name out there, my face out there, and all those things. So it's a full day.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's great though. And is that every single day that waking up and going and starting at 6? And
well, once I get the idea for a story, my world becomes very myopic. I tend to turn off my email. I tend to turn off my social media, and I tend to just really delve into the story because I don't outline. I don't keep a running, I will keep a running outline after about 100 pages so I can keep track of names and things like that. But most of the stuff I keep in my head, or I keep on old-fashioned notepads.
Sure.
And so I just need to stay in the story. And sometimes my wife will understand that, and I'll tell her if I'm in a story, there'll be Saturdays and Sundays where I stay in the story.
Oh, sure.
So that I don't lose that muse.
I guess we can talk about Sam Hell now. What gave you the idea for Sam Hell and his book, The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell?
Sam kind of came out of nowhere. It's one of those stories that I was sort of futzing around with what I was going to do, and I was at a time in my career where things weren't going as well as I would have liked them to have gone initially, and Stephen King calls it telepathy, and Diana Gabaldon calls it magic, whatever you want to call it. I was able to tap into a place where this young boy started talking to me.
Okay.
And he started telling me his story, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with 4 or 5 scenes in my head.
That's cool.
And I would get out of bed and I'd come into my office and I'd just start writing. And on my second screen, I would keep notes on what the next scene is, and the next scene, and the next scene, and the next scene. But I really didn't have a firm character. I had a firm grip on what the story was going to be, a coming of age book, a young boy growing up in a small town, yada, yada, yada. And then one day I was reading the newspaper and I came across an article in the newspaper. It was a small little article about this big. And it was about a young boy that was denied admittance to a Catholic school in Australia because he had ocular albinism, which is red eyes. And the teachers were worried that he'd disrupt the classroom because the kids called him Devil Boy. Now talk about the irony, right?
Yeah.
That was, I knew right away this was my character.
Wow.
This was what I was going to do. And it fit just so perfectly. And then the name Sam Hell really came from my father. When I was a young boy, I'm one of 5, I have one of 6 boys.
Okay.
I can't tell you the number of times my dad came into our room and would look at us and go, "What the Sam Hell were you thinking?" And so it was just, everything just comes together for a reason that we don't always understand. But if we are open and willing to allow that muse to tell us what the story is, as opposed to trying to create the story, I think those are the most powerful stories. And there's a reason why I think Sam Hell has been my most powerful story. It's because it comes from the heart.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't come from the up here.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to think it through. It's just visceral.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I just love how that story came about, and that's just wonderful and beautiful. So when you're creating a story, do you usually get like the character first, or the story around the character? Like you mentioned with Sam Howell, it was
Yeah.
not the character first.
Right. It really varies. I just try to stay open to anything. I sit and I have conversations with my editors at Thomas and Mercer and Lake Union, and I tell them what I'm thinking of doing, and we'll kind of talk it through a little bit because sometimes I'll say I want to do this, and she'll say, "Did you read the Michael Connolly book?" No, no. Well, he has a character, and oh, okay, I don't want to do that.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a lot of times where I need to kind of kick it around and find out if I really got a story here. And the other thing is, the story is never what I start out thinking it's going to be. The
Yep.
story is always something that develops into something more, and that's the exciting part of writing.
Sure.
Is not trying to pre-plan what's going to happen, but just allow the characters to surprise you. And
Mhm.
I know that when I'm surprised, like In Her Tracks has a huge twist in it that nobody saw coming. And so, that book has been one of my best Tracy sellers, and it's the
Wow.
9th book in the
Wow.
series, but it's selling because the twist is so jarring and so unexpected that people are talking about it. And
Yep.
that's what's getting people to buy the books.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That is just great. And so, when it comes to writing a story for you, you said that you are not an outliner. So, what advice do you have for people that don't know if they're an outliner or a pantser?
Do
what what advice do you have for them?
do it is more the most organic for you. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I know people that I open an Excel spreadsheet after 100 pages, and I go back and I outline the first 100 pages, and I put in who the characters are, what page the scene starts on, what's happening in the scene, and then I have a place for notes. So if I think, oh, wait a minute, I got to have the character, whatever, I can go back and put the notes in. The thing you don't want to do is try to force a square peg in a round hole,
Nope.
because then you just create anxiety for yourself. And I know there are some publishing houses out there that say, well, no, you have to have a synopsis, or you have to have an outline before we're going to. And, to me, that's just ludicrous, because if the author is not pre-programmed to outline, all you're doing is creating anxiety for that author. I used to take 2 to 3 months to outline a book, and then I start writing, and I'd be off the outline in the second day. And it was just a big waste of time.
Yep.
People ask me, how do you put out 2 or 3 books a year? Well, 2 things. One, I go to work every day, and I work 8 to 10 hours. And then the other thing is that I don't waste time. And
Okay.
for me, outlining was a waste of time.
Sure.
So for me, it works one way. For someone else, it might work another way. And for another person, it might work sort of as an amalgamation of the two. But do it is most natural to you as an author, so that you're not creating unnecessary stress.
Yep. Yep. That's great advice. So in 2014, I went to your novel writing intensive with Stephen James, and you're still doing those.
We still are, yes.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to just share a little bit of information about those in case somebody might want to go to that?
Sure. I mean, the best place is to go to the novelwritingintensive.com.
Okay.
And you'll pull up the website, and it'll tell you really, our administrator is Pam Johnson, and it'll tell you a little bit about Stephen, and it'll tell you a little bit about me, and then it'll tell you a little bit about what the intensive is. And really what it is it's about 3.5 days of very intense instruction, critique, movie watching and analysis, and a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun when we do it, which is why we still continue to do it. And
Awesome.
we get a lot of authors that are very, very interested. And so, if you don't get in the first time, just ask to be put on the waiting list, and we can roll it over. We do it in Johnson City, Tennessee. We do it in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
We've done it in Dallas, Texas, and I think we're talking about maybe doing it in Florida some
cool.
point in the future. But it's an intensive. It's you get up in the morning, I think at 7:00, and you're in class by 8, and you're out of class at 10 o'clock at night, and that might be watching movies, which is a lot of fun. But there's a lot going on, and you know, that's what you need and want as authors, and you know, and that's what we really want to do is get people's manuscripts published, whether that's independently, whether that's with a small press, whether that's with one of the major houses, whoever it is. That's what we're trying to do.
That's wonderful. That's really great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So recommend anyone wanting to do something like that, definitely go check it out. I'll put it in the description below, by the way.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the most difficult thing that you find being a writer? What's the most difficult thing for you?
You know, I don't know that, you know, I don't want to sound, writing is hard. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, writing is hard, and putting together a novel, a 400-page novel, is very, very difficult. If it wasn't, everyone would be doing it. And I know some people think everyone is doing it. But putting together a novel that really can grip people, is tough. It's hard. And you have to steel yourself to understanding that that difficulty, and that you're going to encounter days where you're really not getting much accomplished, where things are just not flowing. But if it is what you love to do, which is what I do love to do, then there's not a day that passes that feels like work.
Good.
You know, every day feels like like you're not working. And so, you know, there's nothing in particular for me that I find the most difficult. I just would say writing in and of itself is hard. It's very difficult, and writing well is even more difficult. So, you know, it's a tough profession.
Yep. That's very well put.
And there's a reason why I think 2% of writers work full-time as writers.
Oh, yep.
It's small, and it's small because it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, no, that's very well put. Since we talked about the most difficult thing, just writing being hard, what is the most precious thing that you find about being a writer? Like the thing that you absolutely love about it?
It's the connection I make with readers. I have received some of the most heartfelt and heart-wrenching emails from readers.
Wow.
I had a woman send me an email telling me that her brother Michael, which was my youngest brother, was named Michael, but her youngest brother in a family of 10 was named Michael.
Okay.
And he was dying of pancreatic cancer. And every night the family would gather around his bed and they would read to him The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell.
Aw.
I mean, you know, you know, it's heart-wrenching and it's heartwarming.
Yeah.
And to me, those are the moments, you know, when my daughter comes in after having read one of my books and hugs me.
Yep.
You know, and says, "It's a good book, Dad. It's a really good book." And she's crying. You know, when my son comes down and says, "I feel like you wrote this book for me." Those are moments you just can't trade for anything.
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. Oh, I always like asking authors that question because it's interesting hearing the answers, but I'm glad that people are being touched by your stories and how cherished that is when you get those letters from people, really, or your kids say those things to you. Like, that's great. Okay, so we have a couple more questions here, but what advice would you give to a new writer or somebody that wants to get published, get their books out there? What advice would you give them?
Don't be in a hurry.
Okay.
You know, don't be in a hurry. Learn the craft. You know, there are books out there on the craft that people can find that can really help them. Christopher Vogler's book, The Writer's Journey, Save the Cat. There are a lot of books out there that talk about plot and plot structure and why stories are told the way they're told. Saul Stein's book on writing talks more about character development. There are a lot of books out there. Stephen James writes some great craft books.
Cool. Yeah.
That can really help you so that when you sit down to write that story you want to write, you have all the tools you need to begin to put it together so that you know what you're writing, you know why you're writing it, you know what each scene is supposed to convey. You're not making the fatal mistakes that will get an agent or an editor or a reader to put a book down, because you are giving them what they expect in a way they're not expecting it.
Yep. Yeah, that's so well put. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then where can people find your book and find out more about you, so that we can send some people over to check out your books?
So you can find out a lot about me on Amazon.com. So I think it's something like Amazon/Robert Dugoni. You'll get to my Amazon page. You'll be able to read a lot about me there.
Okay.
If not, you can go to www.robertdugoni.com, and that's my website page. And those are the two places where you really can find out the more about me than you probably really wanted to know. But it's all there.
Okay, perfect. I'll put that all in the description as well.
Terrific.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sitting in and taking out a little bit of your time of your staycation to chat with me, and thank your wife. And I'm sure
Well,
it's going to be a lovely rest of the day. So
thank you.
thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah,
And
thank
good
you.
luck. Good luck to you with all your writing projects.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. Like, that means so much. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.